Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, lived a lovely little princess named Snow White. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. She was kind and gentle, and every creature big or small was her friend. But her stepmother, the queen, was a vain and wicked woman. Each day she would stand before her magic mirror and ask, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And every day the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest one of all." The queen was satisfied, for she knew her magic mirror never lied. But as Snow White grew, her beauty blossomed, becoming more radiant with each passing day. One morning, the queen asked her mirror the same old question, but this time the answer was different. The mirror replied, "My queen, you are fair, it is true, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen's face twisted with jealousy and rage. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her. Her heart filled with darkness, and she decided she had to get rid of Snow White. The queen summoned her loyal huntsman and commanded him, "Take Snow White deep into the forest, and there I want you to end her life. As proof that you have done my bidding, bring me back her heart in this jeweled box." The huntsman, though loyal, had a good heart. He couldn't bring himself to harm the innocent princess. So he led Snow White into the woods, but instead of carrying out the queen's cruel order, he confessed the entire evil plan. "Run," he urged her. "Run away, child, and never come back." Terrified, Snow White ran as fast as she could, deeper and deeper into the dark, tangled forest. The branches seemed to grab at her dress, and strange eyes peered from the shadows. She ran until her legs could carry her no more, finally collapsing in a small clearing. As the sun began to rise, Snow White awoke to find herself surrounded by curious forest animals. The birds, squirrels, and deer seemed to understand her sadness and gently guided her through the woods. They led her to a strange little cottage, tucked away in a sunny glade. It was tiny, with a crooked chimney and a mossy roof. Cautiously, she knocked on the small wooden door, but there was no answer. The door creaked open, and she peeked inside. Everything was in a mess. 7 little plates were on the table, 7 little cups were scattered about, and the whole place looked like it hadn't been cleaned in ages. Feeling a surge of energy, Snow White decided to make herself useful. With the help of her animal friends, she began to tidy up. They washed the dishes, swept the floors, and dusted every nook and cranny. Upstairs, she found 7 little beds, each with a name carved on it: Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey. Utterly exhausted from her work, she lay down across 3 of the tiny beds and quickly fell fast asleep. Later that day, the owners of the cottage returned from their work in the diamond mine. It was the 7 Dwarfs. They marched home, singing their familiar song, "Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's home from work we go." But as they approached their cottage, they noticed something was different. The chimney was smoking, the lights were on, and the front door was ajar. "Look, our house! Something's in there," whispered Doc. Cautiously, they crept inside. They were astonished to find their home sparkling clean. "The dishes are washed. The floor's been swept. My cup's been polished," they exclaimed one by one. But their biggest surprise was waiting for them upstairs. There, sleeping peacefully on their beds, was the most beautiful girl they had ever seen. At first, they were suspicious, but when Snow White woke up and told them her sad story, their hearts melted. All of them, that is, except for Grumpy, who muttered, "All females are poison. They're full of wicked wiles." But the others quickly outvoted him. They agreed to let her stay on one condition: she would cook, sew, and keep the house clean for them. Snow White happily agreed. "But you must promise to be very careful," warned Doc. "Your stepmother is wicked. Don't let anyone in the cottage while we're away." Snow White promised she would be safe. A new, happy life began for her, filled with the dwarfs' joyful songs and her own sweet laughter. Meanwhile, back at the castle, The evil queen approached her mirror once more. "Magic mirror on the wall, who now is the fairest one of all?" she asked, confident in her victory. But her blood ran cold when the mirror replied, "Over the 7 jeweled hills, beyond the 7th fall, in the cottage of the 7 dwarfs, Snow White is fairest of all." The queen shrieked with fury. She had been tricked. Realizing the huntsman had betrayed her, she descended into her secret chamber, a dark place filled with potions and spells. She decided to take matters into her own hands. Using her dark magic, she transformed herself into an old, hunched peddler woman with a wart on her nose. To complete her disguise, she brewed a special poison and dipped a single, perfect red apple into the deadly mixture. One side of the apple remained untouched, but the other, the wishing side, held a spell of sleeping death. Disguised as the old woman, the queen made her way to the dwarf's cottage. She found Snow White outside, humming a tune as she baked a pie for her friends. "Hello, dearie," cackled the queen. "Just an old peddler woman selling my wares. How about a delicious apple? A magic wishing apple?" Snow White, remembering the dwarf's warning, was hesitant. But the old woman seemed so harmless, and the apple looked so tempting. "Oh, I shouldn't," Snow White said. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." To prove it was safe, the queen took a bite from the clean side of the apple. Seeing this, Snow White's fears vanished. She took the apple, made a secret wish for her prince to find her, and took a large bite. Instantly, the poison took effect. Snow White fell to the ground, trapped in a deep, death-like sleep. The evil queen cackled triumphantly. "Now, I am the fairest of all." When the 7 dwarfs returned home that evening, they found Snow White lying motionless on the floor. They were heartbroken. They tried everything to wake her, but nothing worked. They couldn't bear to bury her beautiful form in the cold earth, so they built a special coffin of glass and gold. They placed her inside and kept a constant watch over her, day and night, their hearts heavy with grief. One day, a handsome prince who had heard tales of the beautiful maiden sleeping in the glass coffin came riding through the forest. He had met Snow White once, long ago, and had been captivated by her beauty and song. When he saw her lying there, so peaceful and lovely, he was overcome with sadness. He leaned down and gave her a gentle kiss, a kiss of true love. At that moment, the evil spell was broken. Snow White's eyes fluttered open, and she awoke as if from a long dream. The dwarfs danced and cheered with pure joy. Their beloved princess was alive. The prince asked Snow White to be his bride, and she happily accepted. He lifted her onto his magnificent white horse, and they rode off toward his castle to live happily ever after. Snow White never forgot the kindness of her 7 little friends, proving that true beauty is not found in a mirror, but in a kind and courageous heart. And so, our story ends, a timeless reminder that goodness and love will always triumph over jealousy and evil. Thank you for joining me on this magical journey today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more classic fairy tales. See you next time.